randomly popped up in my YouTube feed. Adam Calhoun, or was it Adam or was it Aaron?
I think Aaron.
I can't remember off the top.
So, all right,
Aaron
so we're
Calhoun.
officially live now. What's up, everybody? It's your boy Israel here. We're having some interesting discussions. I'm joined by my special guest, Charles. Charles is from the Independent Report over on YouTube, so you can go ahead and check him out on YouTube at the Independent Report. And why don't you give people your Twitter handle so they can reach you on Twitter?
So yeah, the Twitter handle is Vigilant Indep. It's INDEPE1. That's the Twitter handle. You can follow me at over there. I'll be posting links quite often to videos as I upload them, and following, sharing stuff. I share a lot of stuff with from Big Talk, Little Talk, and whatnot. But that's my Twitter account.
Awesome. Yeah, you've been doing pretty good work, man. So obviously, folks, what we wanted to talk about right off the gate is, Twitter's kind of been blowing up this morning over the whole debate that happened yesterday. I know that Charles here was fortunate enough to not witness that debacle, but it was definitely one of the more boring debates there, Charles. I guess if I had to sum it up in a few sentences, it was just the usual from all the candidates, right? They all kind of gave their stump speeches. There wasn't a lot of action. Most of the candidates on the debate were agreeing that they would maintain the USMCA, which is the new kind of NAFTA 2.0 version of a trade agreement. And, Bernie was one of the only, I believe Steyer as well, the billionaire there. he was the only one, aside from Bernie, that opposed the USMCA. And then, they kind of addressed the Bernie Warren, drama show that's been going on the last couple days with Elizabeth Warren leaking to CNN that, oh, dear Lord, Bernie Sanders had told me a year and a half ago that, women couldn't win the presidency. Really convenient that it came out now. Anyways, she kind of tripled down during the debate, and we saw CNN basically asking Bernie Sanders, hey, you say that Elizabeth Warren didn't say that, or that you didn't say that to Elizabeth Warren. And Bernie's like, yeah, I didn't say that to Elizabeth Warren. And the CNN moderator turns around and asks Elizabeth Warren right after, how did you feel when Bernie Sanders did say that to you? I mean, that really sums it up, man.
Yeah.
At the end there, they also had a handshake. We'll try to show an image here, but why don't you give us your first thoughts on just kind of that wrap up?
So, yeah, I didn't get the displeasure of actually watching it live last night, but when I got up this morning, I started watching some clips of it. I'll say this, as far as the boring factor goes, I don't think that's really much of a surprise, considering most of the people who brought that, wild card message to the stage that the DNC and the status quo doesn't exactly like to hear. They weren't there last night. Tulsi Gabbard wasn't there. Andrew Yang wasn't there. You had Bernie. And then, of course, some like to throw Elizabeth Warren in there. And to me, that's more of the, liberal type folks, the TYT type, listeners. Exactly. They like that Elizabeth Warren, but I don't put her in that column. And for the very reason that you point out, I've been saying she's a snake in the grass and a wolf in sheep's clothing for some time. Now, touching on what she brought up, some I would be willing to bet are going to come out and say, well, she didn't bring this up until now because, there was that whole rumor that her and Bernie had agreed upon a ceasefire, until they kind of weeded some folks out, got maybe well into the primary season and then maybe take the gloves off. But in the early rounds, we're going to keep the gloves on. We're just going to kind of watch each other's back type deal. Me personally, though, I don't believe it. I think it's a lie. You've got you got Bernie Sanders on the record over decades, where he's been very, praising of women. He brought that up, okay? And then and even Bernie had to laugh when they asked him, did you say this? He said no. And then like you point out, they turned right around and asked Elizabeth Warren, how did she feel when he said it? It's like, wait a minute. Why even bother asking this guy? Did he say these things if you're just going to turn right around and pretend he said them anyway when he denied it, So
right, exactly.
Even Bernie had to laugh at it. But to me, I think this is typical Elizabeth Warren lying to try and get some political points, some sort of emotional points, playing that woman card, what have you. And it's not the first time we've seen her do this. Right. If you recall back, I found this clip through Jimmy Dore. Okay, she tried to claim that when she was a teacher, and I forget what grade, for I think it was special needs children. Her most recent story, she claimed that they pretty much fired her because she got pregnant, right?
Yeah, that's what
But
she claims.
rewind the clock back to like late 2000s, she told the same story except it was in a completely different scenario. And the scenario was she didn't actually have the credits to be a full-on teacher. They brought her in on some sort of emergency certificate or something, and then she was going to have to go back to college to get the credit. And then I don't know if this is the way for if this is the right path for me. Well, that's a lot different than a school firing you because you were a woman and got pregnant, which is what she's claiming in more recent times.
And that just kind
Trying
of
to
shows her
pull
history with, manipulating the truth.
exactly, and I think that's what this is right here. She's trying. We've got a woman here who's blonde-haired, blue-eyed, claimed to be Native American for many, many years. Actually, was featured in Native American cookbooks.
Wow.
Okay, and and so she's trying to play that woman card against who? The old white man on the stage, who people compare her somewhat to in a lot of ways. We're mainstream media for the most part. Say, oh, they're really the same. She's just the younger female version. So now she's going to try and slap him with the whole sexist, card. He doesn't think a woman can be president. Blah blah blah. It's all political theater on her part, and that's why I said you can't trust this woman. She's going to go whichever way she thinks the winds blow.
Exactly. So, folks, for you guys watching, I'm going to go ahead and throw up this image here of, the end of the debate. Everybody kind of shakes hands and everything like that. And, as Elizabeth Warren was kind of making her rounds down the podiums, Bernie Sanders was approaching, and he reaches out to shake Elizabeth Warren's hand, because Bernie Sanders, love him or hate him, he is a nice guy, but I think that kind of works against him, especially in a primary where you're supposed to be distinguishing yourself, quite aggressively with some of the other candidates. Anyways, so they go back and forth, and Bernie Sanders basically, you see him kind of get aggravated, right, and kind of throw his hands up and say, you know what, whatever, it's, you said this, and you're the one that put it out there. Obviously, we don't know exactly the context of what they said. It could be anything, but from what a lot of people are saying, and just from Bernie's tone and his history and, his hand gesturing, just like Donald Trump. We know when Donald Trump gets excited, he does his hand gesturing. So we can tell just from that kind of where Trump's at. And I think the same can be said with Bernie Sanders in regards to this altercation between him and Elizabeth Warren. So anyways, this kind of speaks to a larger point that I kind of wanted to ask you about, which is, we saw Elizabeth Warren's polling numbers start to drop, kind of dramatically over the last 2 weeks as we get closer to the Iowa caucus and the New Hampshire primary. To me, this seems like a desperate, Hail Mary from her campaign to rally women and to rally that kind of woke leftist kind of arm of the Democratic Party to her side, which is kind of Pete Buttigieg's, whatever his name is, Mayor Pete's constituency. So what do you make of this whole thing? Because we saw her pedal back the Medicare for all arguments, right? And like you said, the TYT and company crew were, touting this Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders ticket, all while at the same time demonizing Andrew Yang and Tulsi Gabbard. Like, do you think, what do you kind of get into her mind and kind of talk to us about that, I guess?
It was definitely, in my opinion at least, a Hail Mary last-ditch effort.
Yeah.
But that's really what someone who's trying to play politics and not actually be someone that's going to stand up on, a set of morals and values and stick to them no matter what. Someone who plays politics, again, they try to go wherever the wind blows. And that's pretty much what she did. She made a serious miscalculation coming out with her backpedal of Medicare for all when she did. But at the same time, I think she may have done that because she wouldn't come out and outright answer the question, about the whole raising the taxes thing, because she knew that would be a soundbite used against her. And I actually gave her credit for that by saying, she knew what, people at Fox News or whoever would use if she come out and said, hey, I'm going to have to raise your taxes. But even and then go into the explanation like Bernie did. Well, it's not going to actually cost you more because you're going to get rid of X, Y, and Z to compensate for it. But they're not going to do that. They're going to use that soundbite. So I gave her credit.
Right.
But then she came out with that whole backpedal issue, and it really tanked her when she exposed where she really stood on Medicare for all. And
Right.
again,
She
she's
never
got
had the
that
backbone.
history. No, she's got that history of making the flip flops. I mean, even Harry Reid said himself when they were asked, about her stance on Medicare for all, he's like, "Oh, well, I don't think she's married to it. Yeah, I think she'll come around." And the guy asking the question said, "So you think she's a little more pragmatic?" And his response was, "No, I know she's more pragmatic." Okay, so that's coming, from people all around, and look at like Hillary Clinton, for example. That whole, sexist, "I'm a woman, so you should stand with me" card. That's pretty much what a big chunk of her campaign was. So, you've got someone here who's clearly trying to play up to be a particular type of candidate, but they made a serious miscalculation, and as a result, now they're grabbing at anything possible to try and pull some more support in because they realize they made that mistake. And I would make one final point to kind of throw out there in jest, because I caught this little exchange between her and Bernie as well. If we're going to talk about Elizabeth Warren and miscalculations, I really just don't think that the woman has a whole lot of sense in the first place. And the reason that I say that is, did anybody catch the exchange between her and Bernie when she said she was the only person who had beat an incumbent Republican in the last 30 years? And then Bernie had to try and catch her at things like, "Actually, yeah, I beat a Republican in Congress in 1990. And that was like right on the verge of the 30-year mark." And she's trying to say, "Oh, well, I said within the last 30 years. Well, yeah, so that's right on the 30-year mark, Liz. It's in the last 30 years. So you're not adding math too well here,
Right. Yeah, I think,
So,
wasn't it Andrew Yang that called that out? He said it was like 29
awesome.
years and 2 months.
Possibly, yeah.
It was kind of an awkward moment,
I
though.
haven't seen if anybody's commented on Twitter.
I felt like it was kind of a weird moment because like they both kind of froze, and it was like, what is going on there? Like,
But I mean, that's typical Liz. When someone comes at her with something, she freezes. She has a hard time really responding to a lot of things. We've seen that when protesters
oh yeah, that's true.
get up in her rallies, and we're chanting something. She just stood there like a deer in headlights. She had no way to respond. It's like she rehearses what she's supposed to say, what she wants to say, and sometimes she can come back, with a little snippy comeback. But that's usually on an issue where she's actually coming back and telling the truth, like when she come back at Pete Buttigieg in previous debates or something. But when she makes up a lie and someone exposes her, she's froze. She has no way of responding to it. She's like, "Oh, I got caught," and it's the end of it.
Right, exactly.
So,
And so, yeah, that was kind of what happened. That's kind of the breakdown. And one of the things that really caught my attention was I'm gonna play this little clip here, all right, for folks. I'm not sure if you'll be able to hear it on your end, but give me a quick second while I roll this.
His campaign to deny that this happened and for him to deny that this happened. I just want to have the question asked tomorrow night at the debate. I would like Elizabeth Warren to speak to this as well. I would like to know more about this conversation.
And why does it matter if he did say it? Maybe he said it 2018, 2 years ago. If he did say it 2 years ago, would that disqualify him for you? And do you think it would disqualify him with other women?
For me, yes, because I'm a feminist and women are the majority of the country. We're the majority of the electorate. That's very complicated. Women of color obviously vote way more Democratic than white women do. But to say that a woman can't win the election, when a woman beat you by 4 million votes in the primary in 2016 and also beat Donald Trump, who's the current president, by 3 million votes, that is a lie. And he needs to call it that.
All right, so basically what she said, Charles, was, that Bernie Sanders needs to come out and apologize, and that, how could he say something like that? A woman beat him and a woman beat Trump by 3 million votes. And so it's this kind of narrative that a lot of these people, and, I'm sure that a lot of their intentions are good. Like, I don't want to mischaracterize, like, somebody who really cares about, like, improving the social cohesion of America. Obviously, there's a lot of divisiveness in America, but I think that the way that a lot of these people come at it is very tribal, and they just associate with their gender, their race, and all of this, and they get caught up in that kind of team effort mentality that really is a flawed approach when it comes to politics. That's one of the reasons why I liked Bernie Sanders' message in 2016, because I don't feel like he made it about that, but we saw them go after him as a misogynist, as a sexist, when if you look at Bernie Sanders' record, it's completely the opposite. But that just tells you more about this fraction of the DNC, the left, whatever label you want to put on it. It says more to me about these people, that they are as bigoted, as exclusive, or whatever you want to call it, like against their own people. So, and if anything, it props up their opposition more, and it deters independence. What do you make of that?
Oh, I completely agree. I would like to say this, though, as far as the analogy that a woman beat Bernie Sanders, she beat him in a rigged primary. I mean, I don't really, to me, someone who wants to know that I actually had a win, I take a lot of pride, and I'm a very competitive person, and I don't want to take a cheap win. Her victory in that primary was cheap. She rigged the whole system against the guy. So I don't think that's really a good comparison to make, but of course you're not going to get that sort of explanation from MSNBC. But that being said, yes, they're very tribalist, and it's the Democrats, or a lot of these different movements. Some, and they may have good intentions, but at the end of the day, I think they sometimes become too absorbed in whatever their cause is, that they look at it like, oh, if you're one of us, then I got to stand with you, even if you're a polar opposite person and really don't have the same ideals or beliefs as me. We got to stand together. Not necessarily.
Right.
Not necessarily. And I think a good point of that, even, and this is going to be a criticism of Bernie again. He said, I saw it in the clip, whomever wins the Democrat nomination, I'm going to do everything I can to help them get elected. That way we can defeat Donald Trump. Now, people are going to say, well, of course we need to get Donald Trump out of office. And I'm going to agree with that at this point, especially what just happened with Iran. But this is coming from a man who for how many years has claimed he was an independent, not a Democrat, but an independent. And so, I get, Bernie's ideology that we need Trump gone. But at the same time, you're supposed to be the revolutionary here. You're supposed to be bringing or pushing this change to take things away from the corporate Democrats. Now, let's just examine if an Amy Klobuchar or a Joe Biden, Bloomberg, whomever, if they won the nomination, look at their policies. Take the controversial tweets out of it. Take the rhetoric about immigrants and all that out of it. Look at actual policy that's put in place, and tell me that there's going to be a night and day difference between one of those people and Donald Trump. I heard people say, well, we don't want Trump again for the justices. But these are the sort of Democrats who are fast tracking the justices.
Exactly.
Okay? As you said earlier, they're going to push to get the USMCA through. NAFTA 2.0. NAFTA was a huge wrecking ball to our economy and a lot of middle class jobs. And yet they want to push 2.0 through. So what are they going to do any different than what you've got right now? The only thing that you may be losing is all the mainstream media constantly telling you about all the bad stuff they're doing, because they love to talk about everything Donald Trump does. But if it's one of their little darlings that get elected to office, they could be doing 80 to 90% of the same old corporate policy that screws the middle class over, and you're just not going to hear about it this time around. That's the only difference. And so if you're going to come out, just like you did for Hillary last time around, and say, I'm just going to bow down, kiss your ass again, and push for you to get elected, as opposed to finally taking a stand back, because we know the DNC's been pulling games this time around again. They're smearing you again. They're pulling the sexist card on you again. You look what they did to Tulsi. You look what they're doing to Andrew Yang. My God, they won't even show the proper pictures of those two on TV now. Okay?
Right, exactly.
Exclude them from the graphs. So you see this going on, and you're going to do what you did the last time around again. That's the very thing I said before. If they screw this thing up again, he's going to fold for them. That's what I've been saying. And if he does that, to me, that's not someone trying to bring about change. That's someone who says, well, if I get elected, I'll push for change. But if they don't give it to me, my fight's over. That's not really someone that's fighting for change.
And just the idea of Bernie Sanders backing a Bloomberg, the idea of Bernie backing a Bloomberg, that's insane.
Yeah, I mean, seriously. I mean, or even if it's a guy like Tom Steyer. I mean, let's just say Tom Steyer, is like Lazarus and rises from the dead over here or something, and he goes on to become the nominee even, okay?
Right.
To me, you got to be careful with this Tom Steyer guy, okay? Because he's saying a lot of good stuff. It's really the flavor of the week. He has a lot of these talking points that people seem to like. He's flooding money, kind of like Bloomberg. He's getting all over YouTube there. But this is a guy who's been pushing for all this go green stuff that made his money off of coal.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you mean the coal millionaire?
Yeah. And so let's think about that for a moment. Who was another billionaire that ran for president and had arguably a populist message, who seemed like sort of an outsider in their primary, that went on to win? Donald Trump. Now, you're going to obviously have the differences between Steyer and Trump, and you're going to say, well, Steyer's nowhere near as controversial as Trump was. But that's beside the point. Trump ran on a populist message that people said, well, if you look at his track record, doesn't necessarily add up. But the same thing can be said for Steyer. So here's a billionaire who's pushing for policies, yet made his money off doing the polar opposite of those policies. And if he gets elected, where's the rationality that he's just going to stick to those things because it's the right thing to do, yet he made his wealth doing the opposite?
Yeah, exactly. And
so
I feel like Elizabeth Warren seems similar to me, where she'll talk a good game, and she kind of calculates where the political winds are going and kind of goes that way and tries to claim, well, I've always been on this side. Like the 2016 election to me was the first time I personally picked up on Elizabeth Warren. I even heard of Elizabeth Warren when she decided not to endorse Bernie Sanders in Michigan, I think, right? Or Massachusetts. I think she's from Massachusetts.
Yeah, Massachusetts.
Where Bernie lost by like 0.5% or like just under 1% or so, where that could have kind of swayed it to him. And Tulsi Gabbard has been there since 2016. Yeah. But this whole time we have people like you're talking about that really they want social changes. So they want that rainbow coalition of corporate executives who are going to screw you over out of a job and sell it to these, third world countries. But all it's all good because look at the rainbow coalition of CEOs, women and African American men and all of this, and it's like, yeah, okay, but that's still a bad thing. Like you're still getting screwed over from a class perspective, and it's funny how they use this identity politics thing, but whenever they use it, they leave out like white working class people, which only divides the country more because they every time they say, oh, well, look, it's an all-white debate and everything like that. Never mind that Bernie Sanders is Jewish. Never mind that, Elizabeth Warren is 1/100th Native American. Don't they count that?
Yeah, I mean, that's bad, because the statistics, the average person in this country, let me narrow it down a little further.
Yeah.
The average white person in this country still has almost double the amount Native American in her as compared to what she has.
Yeah.
I mean, that's unreal. But
it is so unreal.
The identity politics thing is it's really out of control, man. And I know, like, the whole thing, I don't want it to just sound like I'm only concerned about the white middle class getting a job. It's everybody out there.
Exactly.
It wasn't just white people that got affected by NAFTA. They didn't matter what color you were, unless you lived in Mexico or China or wherever, you didn't profit from that stuff. You lost your job. They didn't look at what color you were. It affected all sorts of different, races,
Yeah. Well, even the people that
genders.
they export the jobs to, like the Mexico, you're seeing them protest too over there because of working conditions over there. So they're even like, doing these worker union protests and stuff like that. So it's like these corporations, they go overseas to one country, and when that country starts to kind of become more, the middle class rises in that country, they move on to another country. Wherever that exploitative labor is going to yield them the most profits, that's where they want to go, and that's where they line politicians' money so that the politicians can make it easier. But I do want to talk about immigration, but before we get there, let me pull up this tweet by Tulsi Gabbard. I'll read it out, and I'll show people here. I'm going to pull up the tweet now. So this is Tulsi Gabbard in response to kind of the spat that's been going on, just to kind of put a nice, bow on this conversation over the whole Warren thing and wrap it up. She says, quote, "I also met with Bernie Sanders before announcing my candidacy. We had a nice one-on-one conversation, and I informed him that I would be running for president. In that meeting, he showed me the greatest respect and encouragement, just as he always has." Now, remember, this is coming after, the mainstream media has already smeared Tulsi Gabbard's name up and down the street. This kind of progressive TYT and company have, followed along with the mainstream media, have pushed out these debunked, articles, and, everything from she's a radical Trojan horse Republican to, this kind of Hindu nationalist stuff to this, well, she's just an opportunist careerist who's only riding Bernie Sanders' coattails. Remember, only riding Bernie Sanders' coattails when Bernie Sanders in 2016 was the most hated politician by the mainstream media and kind of the liberal, affluent Democrats who, if you were going to pander to anybody or kiss anybody's butt, it definitely wouldn't have been Bernie Sanders at the time, because everybody was thinking Hillary Clinton was going to win, and Elizabeth Warren was proof of that because she decided to jump on those coattails. So if Tulsi Gabbard was going to sell out or be some kind of careerist, believe me, Bernie Sanders at the moment in 2016 was not the coattails that you wanted to ride if you were a politician. So now that this whole thing is kind of blown up, I'm hoping that Bernie Sanders' campaign course corrects and starts kind of appealing to the Yang and Tulsi crats, and tries to kind of bridge those gaps. I know I've seen a lot of commentators on YouTube kind of put out this message of like, hey, it's been have been his allies the whole time. The Andrew Yang campaign has not once dropped some kind of smearing article on Bernie, has not once leaked anything about Bernie, has not once called out Bernie negatively. Now there's some like heated exchanges between the camps, but that's to be expected. It's a primary. I don't hold that against any Yang supporter. I don't hold that against any Tulsi supporter or Bernie supporter. That's what you're supposed to do in a primary, I mean, the Obama-Hillary 2008 race, I've seen this on The Rising. They talk about how heated that was and how, vicious it was. So what we're doing now is just playing patty cake. That's basically what this election seems to be, especially without Tulsi and Yang's voice, kind of in this whole ordeal. But anyways, so, yeah, and I don't know. What do you make of where things might be going as far as Tulsi Gabbard, the Bernie Sanders camp, and all of that, in your opinion?
I mean, to me, speaking from someone who obviously has been very advocate for Tulsi Gabbard, and I've spoke up a lot for Andrew Yang in certain areas there as well. And I've given Bernie credit where I can. I don't trust Bernie Sanders, man. I know a lot of people love that guy to death, but he doesn't exactly go whichever way the wind blows. But regardless of how bad they screw him, if they come out on top, he's basically said, now, even for this occasion, yeah, I'm going to come out and do what I can to support you. The Tulsi Gabbard supporters are adamant we want change. Now, a lot of the Bernie camp says, well, we want change too, and Bernie's going to do it. But there seem to be a lot more of those people that say any blue will do, too. Doesn't mean all of them are that way. It's just the impression that I'm getting off a lot of them. Because, I mean, even if you go back and watch TYT, even Secular Talk, for example, okay? And I love Kyle Kalinski's videos. When the 2016 cycle was rolling on, they were very pro-Bernie. They were pushing that message about what all the problems are. But then when he came out and endorsed Hillary, they were still, some more than others, but they were still just kind of, well, we don't like X, Y, and Z. But she's a Democrat, and it's somewhat okay. And, Bernie wants it, so I guess we'll go for it. And no, I mean, to me, that's just unacceptable. And I think there's too many Tulsi supporters. I don't know that the Yang gang is quite to that point, but I would imagine even some of them are as well, because Yang has resonated with a lot of, middle class voters as well. And I think that the only reason, right. And that's why I say, hey, to me, Bernie Sanders obviously was looked at as the one that had the best chance in this election cycle as compared to Yang and Tulsi Gabbard. Okay. People looked at him and they said, okay, you're more well known. You came in second place last time around. If one of the three has the best chance, a bookie, taking odds on this would say Bernie's probably got the best odds at it. So why did people flock toward Yang or Gabbard? Well, you could say that it's just because they preferred their message over Bernie's, but really a lot of their message was more or less the same. So to me, I think it really comes down to who did you trust? Who did you think was more true to their message at the end of the day? Someone like Tulsi Gabbard, who still actively serves in the military as a part of Congress, or Bernie for all of the good things that he has said, but has also been in politics almost literally his entire life, and then bowed down to Hillary Clinton last time around. Well, that was a big concern for me.
Yeah, a lot of people got upset over that.
Yeah, and so even if Bernie tries to come out now and appeal to those voters, he just made that statement in that debate. Even if he came to me and said more or less, now let me be clear. If he won that nomination, I'm not going to be unsatisfied with it, because I think that if he wins, he will push for the things that he's talked about. I want to make that clear. If he wins the nomination, I do think the things he's campaigned on, he's not going to completely betray like most other politicians. But it's if he doesn't win, he's not going to continue to fight, to get rid of even the corrupt Democrats or whatnot. He's already said basically, if I get elected, I'm going to push for primaries against these people. But you're not going to do that if you don't win.
Right. It should be regardless whether you win or not. You should keep that fight going.
Bingo. And see, and Jesse Ventura actually made that point the last time around. Jesse Ventura is the independent, okay?
Oh, yeah.
He's very adamant against a Democrat and a Republican. But he said he got brief seconds. He said literally Bernie kind of almost snubbed him when they met. But he said, he's been on the record for saying that when I had a brief moment to speak to him, I asked him, if Hillary Clinton wins, are you going to continue the fight, or are you going to endorse Hillary Clinton? And his response was, no, I'm going to endorse Hillary Clinton. He said, I knew right then he was not an independent anymore. He was a Democrat. And he said that last time around. So even if Bernie reaches out, the problem you're going to have is how people are going to trust him. And the other thing is, how many of those of the burners out there have kind of, scorned Tulsi Gabbard supporters?
Oh, man. So many.
Or Andrew Yang supporters by basically, thumbing their nose at you or whatever,
Yeah, I've gotten so many of those folks, Yeah, and it's sad because, a lot of them have been kind of misguided by, like you said, the TYT kind of and folks, Michael Brooks and all of them, just completely dismissing the Yang and Tulsi campaign. All the meanwhile, Warren kept sneaking up on them, kept sneaking up on them in the polls. And they kept saying, no, it's okay because these two are allies. Don't worry about it. They both share similar policies. And look who's getting stabbed in the back by who now. So it is a moment of kind of vindication for a lot of us who have been, like you said, sounding the alarms from day one. Kind of to speak to what you were saying about Bernie Sanders, though, I share your concern. I do hope that, here's the biggest thing to me. It's been his passiveness, the inability to call out the mainstream media in a way that not even Donald Trump, but Tulsi Gabbard does, where she'll call them out directly and say, this is the manufacturing. This is what the mainstream media does. They push this war stuff, and I just don't see that from Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders, to me, he does it in a very general sense. You know, whenever he really does get upset, you see him kind of going towards that direction. But my goodness, his passiveness is so unattractive to me. It's just, you know, I don't know if maybe I'm romanticizing the 2016 election, but I don't think he was this passive back then. It could be, this is just kind of me speculating, but it could be that Bernie, you know, has been leaning a lot on the squad and a lot of the whole, like, you know, the woke progressives who, you know, care a lot about social issues, but see Bernie Sanders as their champion over the rest. And maybe he's turning his path down that road. And I would caution him not to do that. And I would caution people to be weary of those folks, because as we saw with that clip I played of that lady, they will turn on you in a second if you know, if they can use that identity politics and weaponize it against you. If, you know, they don't agree with the path you're taking, or you're not being considerate enough of their feelings, they'll turn on you, man, and they'll drop you in a second. But
yeah,
I did want to turn our attention to kind of Tulsi Gabbard and this whole Iran situation. I know that it's kind of de-escalated it a little bit, but I hadn't had a chance to talk to you about that stuff, man. So what did you make of just the entire mess that has been kind of ramped up in the Middle East and where we're at now?
Some would say predictable. I had my fingers crossed that, you know, for all the bad things you had lumped in with Donald Trump, that one of the good things was we may not get into another war. And some are going to say, well, we're not in a war now. I don't think there's any putting this genie back in the bottle right now. I genuinely don't think you're going to, you know, reverse these gears. I think that the damage has been done, especially now that you've got the issue of the passenger plane that got shot down. And I'll come back to that in just a second. But this entire thing, the whole thing about him being a Soleimani being a terrorist. Now, I have not researched a load of information about, you know, Qasem Soleimani. What I have learned about the man is this, that I've heard that he's been associated with attacks that obviously caused deaths of Americans. I saw something that said he was responsible for an attack in Beirut, Lebanon back in the 80s that killed American troops. But
back in the 80s,
you've got to remember, in the middle of all that, take the attack back in the 80s, okay? Now, if that's the case, by my recollection, they threw out the Shah, wasn't it, in 79, which was the person we installed back in 1953.
That's right.
Our CIA went in and killed their Democratic elected leader, installed a dictator. They finally revolted all these years later, took him out of power. The Ayatollah took over. And then it was about maybe a year later when they went to war with Iraq and Saddam Hussein. And, of course, the United States then stuck their big nose in the middle of it all and backed Saddam Hussein. Right. Now, if you get in the middle of two people throwing punches, what are the odds you're going to get hit? Well, that's kind of what happened there. If there was an attack that carried, and I'm not justifying it, but quite simply, we stuck our nose in a conflict.
Oh, no, but that's what the opposition will tell you. The opposition will say any kind of criticism is an apology for the Iranian regime. Any type of criticism is what they'll say.
That you know, and I've heard that. That's what that Calhoun guy I made a video is basically responding. If you don't like America, you need to get your Starbucks and leave, or some crap like that, right? Look, I'm going to remind you what Thomas Jefferson said. Dissension is the greatest form of patriotism. If you want to be an ass kisser and just kiss the butt of the powers who be because you like that particular party, or you think Donald Trump combs his hair right, and you think he's a great president because, you know, he'll cuss every now and then when he goes to a rally, and you don't typically hear presidents do that, or whatever. Whatever your reason is, if you think that man can do no wrong and you won't hold him accountable where you see serious disagreements with him or whatever, if you just want to go along to get along, hey, that's you. But that's not being a patriot, quite simply. You know, to take the ideology that your country could never do something wrong, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. You can still love your country very much and support your country with everything you have. But when you see your country making bad mistakes, saying something about it to try and reverse things like that from going on.
Right. And it's not even like you're accusing any.
Patriotism.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're 100% right. But here's the thing: is that it's not even like you're arguing about like some partisan issue. It's not like you're talking about some like red versus blue partisan issue, right? You're talking about Americans being sent off to, you know, ramp up escalations in a country, in a region that, number one, they don't want us there. The Iraqi parliament already voted that they don't want us there. Our presence there, number two, has made them more emboldened to Iran, more sympathetic to the Iranians. And they'll trot out video and say, well, look, on Fox News, I saw all these Iranians protesting the plane crash and everything like that. Yeah, there's probably, you know, there's heated tensions in the country. That doesn't mean we have to go stick our nose in the country and pick sides like we've been doing for the last couple decades. That only makes it worse. And before you even start talking about this Iranian situation, how about you tell me how we're going to win this war that we're in, this endless war against terrorism, which is such a vague, you know, enemy. It's you can describe anything as terrorism. In fact, they made the whole Soleimani force, you know, they claimed them as terrorists, which gave them the, you know, lawful ability to go after Soleimani because, you know, once you classify someone as a terrorist, you can bring up that 2002 resolution. And this is something Gabbard's campaign talks about all the time, where it's like we've been using that for Syria. We've been using that to get involved in Niger in Africa. We've been using that to get involved in Pakistan. We've been using that to get involved in all sorts of countries in that region. And that only kind of emboldens these organizations, as we see with the drug cartel. I always make that kind of analogy, or not analogy, but that comparison, because to me it's similar. It's like the war on drugs. Well, what drugs? Like who? Like it's so vague, and it just and what do you make of this idea that maybe it's just to prop up the $1 billion industrial military contracting, you know, behemoth that we've been dealing with?
Oh, well, I mean,
go ahead.
That's exactly what's going on here. But I want to make one quick point back to Soleimani, for example, and I said this in one of my videos. We've had the policy for a long time. I know people are going to throw some examples out there saying that, well, you know, that like we're negotiating with the Taliban right now, and where we paid money to get some hostages back or something, you know. But there was a long-standing policy: we don't negotiate with terrorists. Okay, well, we don't negotiate with them. It wouldn't make sense if we don't negotiate with them. Why do we work with them? Because we've done things and worked with the Quds Force and Soleimani. For God's sake, he was working with the Kurds to fight ISIS. We're arming the Kurds.
That's right.
So, for God's sake, if we don't negotiate with terrorists, we certainly wouldn't be working with terrorists either. But yet, you know, again, he was a terrorist. He was a terrorist. And now, for all these years, we've been hearing about ISIS, al-Baghdadi, Osama bin Laden. I haven't heard that name. Mentioned at all. And now the whole concept, well, he was going to carry out an attack. And where is that information coming from?
Yeah.
Our intelligence agencies.
Well, if you remember, even
that lied about Iraq.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, if you remember, we've had so many of those names you've been mentioning, like al-Zarqawi was like in 2016 with Bush, and then Obama, you know, getting these terrorist people. And then every time there's new heads that take, you know, the realm. Yeah. So it's like, when is it done? When is it mission accomplished? But anyways, I just wanted to add that. Go ahead, continue.
Yeah, definitely. You know, but not once, because some of these names you at least heard floated over the year. I didn't hear that name. Okay, but the bigger thing though is we're being told he was going to carry out an attack, and the intelligence agencies pushed by us that. Now again, as I said, the intelligence agencies who lied about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Oh, and it's Trump citing these intelligence agencies this time around, the intelligence agencies who he has been calling basically liars, saying that they've been, you know, trying to carry out witch hunts against him working with the Democrat. So for what, almost 3 to 4 years, you've been saying how the intelligence agencies really can't be all all that trusted. But now, all of a sudden, now out of the clear blue, they've written the 11th commandment, basically.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, seriously. And so for someone who doesn't see the hypocrisy in that, you got to quit drinking the Kool-Aid for a minute, because you're getting way too bought and sold on anything that comes out of Donald Trump's mouth if you can't see that there's clearly some hypocrisy with what's going on with that. But back to what your question was about this propping up the money. That's exactly what's going on here. For example, you can literally go look at what's going on in Afghanistan. You can trace it all back to, for example, when we first went in, Taliban had actually been putting down a lot of the poppy growth in that country, which is used to make a lot of drugs, if I'm not mistaken. I think heroin being one of them. Okay? Right. Now, we've gone into that country. Obviously, the Afghanistan papers have come out, shows we weren't winning that war whatsoever. But yet, our interference, poppy growth is back full swing. Okay? And there was actually, I read an article a couple of years back that showed how that was actually the poppy growth there connected to a lot of laundered money in the international banks, and it had started drying up. But that's one example. You can go into multiple other examples and just take, for example, a lot of the manufacturing that's still right here in the United States. Now, as we covered earlier,
last of it.
NAFTA, NAFTA cost a lot of jobs, and a lot of the manufacturing that is still here in the United States, if you go and do some digging into a lot of these companies, you'll find that a lot of them still have or some sort of a contract. They a lot of them build or provide something for the military. Okay? Now, a job that I used to work at was a textile company. They had contracts with the government for many different things. They made like TSA uniforms. They made, car parts and things like that, or the plastics that could be used to make them. They also were responsible for getting newer materials together to make new military combat uniforms. Now, that's what where the military industrial complex started. We turned this into a business for World War II. It became, we were producing things for the troops. But just like any other business, just like anyone who makes cars, just like anyone that makes laptops, you've got to sell this stuff, okay? And when the last leg of American manufacturing has ties to making something for the military and selling it off to the Department of Defense and the Pentagon, well, they're going to have to justify using this stuff, or else they're going to be sitting on massive stockpiles they could do nothing with. So sometimes they'll sell off old equipment to allies or whatever, but
or Saudi Arabia.
To keep this stuff going. Yeah, I mean, Saudi Arabia, exactly. So they've got to keep selling this stuff. So what they do, they come in, they lobby the politicians, slick them up real nice, take them out, get them a nice steak dinner, and then throw a few $1,000 or so at them from multiple different people, which is how they become so rich while they've got their, congressional job. Okay. They line them up, buy them off, and then they just take us right on into more and more conflict. They don't say too much. They may say, kick back a little bit, say, oh, well, this was reckless, but when the rubber meets the road, they'll be supporting the conflict. They'll be saying we're doing our duty as the United States of America. We've got to watch everything around the world and stick our noses in when we think someone's being a bully. And that's how they keep using this stuff. So, I mean, it's literally, this is one of the last things of the American manufacturing. We're producing this stuff. They've got to sell it. They're not going to sell it to American people. They're not going to sell, fighter jets to the American people. They've got to sell this stuff to the DOD. So it's all about the money. That's literally what it's come down to. If we don't have war, we have nothing to do with this stuff. And literally, if we pulled out of all these wars, these jobs would dry up. And when you factor in, unfortunately, this is not a good thing, but this is what would happen. If we did pull out of all these wars, and we don't have our trade issues fixed, so we're still hemorrhaging jobs, hemorrhaging deficit and whatnot, the jobs that are being used right now to create these products that they're providing to go, spread more war, well, they're going to dry up because they're not going to be able to sell the stuff. They're going to close up because there's no market for it. And when they close up, and we still haven't fixed our trade policies and gotten more jobs back that American people work, then the unemployment numbers are probably going to jump through the roof. You would call it an economic crisis. And that's one
there's
thing
so many jobs tied to it.
Yeah. And so, I mean, literally, when you think about it, these politicians, for lack of a better term, they've created nothing but an absolute hellhole for this economy right now. You hear it's booming, but all it's going to take, if you do the right thing, literally, you're going to have to get so much done to set us up to have fallbacks for when we do pull out of all these wars. I think that honestly could be one of the biggest reasons that there's so many politicians who run against all these wars, and then when they get into office, do a 180. Because then they start realizing, like, ooh, so you mean to tell me that this could actually, like, wreck our economy if we did this? And they're like, yes, because we have to sell this stuff. And so it is your job, now that we've paid to get you elected, to keep this thing going. Otherwise, we won't have, profits from this anymore.
Exactly. I mean, that's a very great point. And just to throw Elizabeth Warren under that bus, because I enjoy doing that, she is actually, I don't know if it's Raytheon. There's someone in her home state that, really lobbies her and really gives her a lot of money. So she would definitely be one of these politicians that you're talking about that would just roll over come the actual day of judgment there, and deciding, okay, am I going to do this or that, because there's a lot of money here tied up. And it's like you said, these people have become masters of their craft. They know what they're doing. They're not elected politicians. These are, because what they'll do is they'll say, well, I know that there's a representative in this county. We're having some pushback here. Let's go ahead and give like 4,000 jobs to produce the cockpit equipment for our fighter jets. And, but they won't produce the whole thing because we have other politicians in other areas of the country to sell out, so that everybody in the rural areas of the country and the middle, the flyover states and stuff like that, that's where they make a lot of this stuff. So Raytheon, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, they'll all go here. And, the minute somebody tries to, talk about lowering the military budget, or, maybe decreasing the Defense Department's spending, you can have some Republican puppet boy go out there and say, oh, look at all these jobs. And he would be correct. That's the saddest part, is they're going to lose all these jobs, like you were saying, or, I don't know, the economy's going to slump, and, you're going to have higher unemployment rates and all of this. And like you said, it all couples together with our trade policies and how we do that. Today, Donald Trump is signing this supposed new ceasefire thing with China over the the trade wars and stuff like that, which I'm sure is just a dog and pony show. It's probably not going to lead to anything substantive. It's just kind of a safe face action by Trump and his administration, over this whole trade war situation. But yeah, man, let me try to play this clip. I think I have the right one. Again, I know you won't be able to hear it, but it's about a minute or so. So let me see if I got the right one here. One second. Maybe not. All right, well, it doesn't seem to be pulling up. But anyways, it was a Tulsi Gabbard segment where she talked about that one ABC anchor, where in her town hall, where she was referring to that one ABC anchor, basically praising and being like a little kid, on Christmas over the missiles being launched from our one of our destroyers or something out in by Syria, when Trump hit Syria. That's kind of the next topic I want to talk about, is the mainstream media's involvement in this whole endless war situation. I tend to think, look, they get a lot of money from the Defense Department as well. They get propped up by endless ads. Like, I see Lockheed Martin's ad running on, mainstream media, and I'm like, who are these for? Like, who's watching this thinking, like you said, they're not selling these fighter jets to your average Joe, no one's thinking, I'm going to get that new model. I got an outdated model out in the yard by the barbecue pit. I can't have that. They're not doing that. So it makes me think like there's probably another Oh, sorry. Another nefarious reason for that. What do you make of the mainstream media's involvement in all this?
Oh, of course. I mean, and again, you got the whole stuff with Operation Mockingbird from a long time ago to use as a point of reference for that. But yeah, I mean, to give the simplest analogy, I got a feeling, you know, in that wine cave with the crystals, you're going to find politicians, people, lobbyists from the military-industrial complex, lobbyists from, you know, big pharma, Wall Street bankers, and you're going to find, you know, a couple other special interests, and then you're going to find some people in the mainstream media and people who have influence. Bloomberg, Bezos, other billionaires, maybe even Bill Gates, you know, the list goes on and on. Those are the sort of people who go to those wine caves we heard about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know that, what's his name? Jeff Bezos you brought up. Doesn't he have doesn't he sit on the board of the Defense Department? Like he bought his way into like our Defense Department or some agency, and now he like advises them.
Ties into the CIA, or if I'm not mistaken. I've heard. I can't remember the exact thing off the top of my head. It's definitely the Department of Defense or the CIA. But yeah, I mean, we're talking about a guy here who owns Amazon. Okay, is competing, I believe, with Elon Musk on like space programs. Also owns a news organization. Okay, and has ties. You know, like I said, I'm pretty sure it's the CIA, but it could be the DoD. I'm 90% positive it was the CIA he got his hands in.
Yeah.
But again, that reflects back over to the mainstream media as well, because Anderson Cooper has histories with the CIA, and he's got the connection to the Vanderbilt family. Okay, you've got these people in the news today who are there to push whatever agenda the powers that be want pushed.
Right.
Pure and simple. If they can't find good things to really attack you with, they ignore you. They pretend that you're not there. Okay. Okay. That's sort of the treatment that they have toward Andrew Yang and Tulsi Gabbard in a lot of ways. Now, Tulsi Gabbard, as we know, they really come out and attack her. But and again, if they don't have something, they make up something. You know,
do you
if they
think that's why they boycotted?
Going to work.
Do you think that's why they keep mistaking Andrew Yang for random Asian and Japanese folks? Because remember, he boycotted MSNBC, and they're the ones that keep doing that to him.
Honestly, this is just a hunch. This is just a hunch, and maybe I'm getting way out into conspiracy theory world here. But if you study a lot of CIA techniques that they use, and that, you know, intelligence people use, and this is sort of, like I said, get out there into the conspiracy theory world, where they try to manipulate the way that you think, and they will show pictures and things like that to deliberately make you think someone is a certain person. So obviously Andrew Yang was in the last debate. If you saw the first few debates, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people about to disagree with what I'm about to say. If you saw him in the first debates, you know what he looks like. But if there's someone out there that doesn't just really follow politics all that much or whatever, and they show these pictures on television, and that's clearly not Andrew Yang, and then you happen to actually see the real Andrew Yang or something later on, you might not know. Again, that may be a little bit of a stretch, and even if that isn't the case, I would definitely say that they're just doing things like this because they are trying to give the impression that they're not as serious.
I think it's
candidate, or you should say seriously. Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of malicious intent there, and again, I think what they're either trying to keep you from knowing who they are, or if they think that that's not going to get the job done, then we're going to create things to attack you on. Now, the thing with Andrew Yang, let me be honest, Andrew Yang, you could arguably say the Yang Gang definitely has had maybe a stronger, fundraising and polling numbers in a lot of things than Tulsi has. Okay, just to play devil's advocate there, polling has seemed to reflect that the Yang Gang has definitely been very strong in their fundraising for him. But Andrew Yang is still a much more soft-toned, mellow type of guy. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so,
especially on foreign policy, like he doesn't go after the MSM like that.
Exactly. And so when you take that into consideration, it's very easy to just, kind of semi-ignore the quiet person in the room and just say, well, they may be all right polling-wise, but they're going to fade away when you stop seeing them on the debates. It's going to fizzle out, we won't have to worry about it. But somebody who gets out there and makes a scene, okay, and makes their voice heard and calls you out on a regular basis, goes all over the online news programs, whether it be Jimmy Dore or The Hill or whatever, moves to a town and rents a house there, so try to keep more in touch with the people, like Tulsi Gabbard. Someone like that, pretending they're not in the room is just not going to be enough, because all that's going to do, she's going to be vocal. Hey, you're ignoring me. You don't want me on your news network because you think, so then they have to create the smears. They have to create the attacks. I think that's why we've seen that for Tulsi Gabbard, and we never saw it for Andrew Yang. They realized they had to put some sort of, almost like the Trump dossier thing. They had to put something together that they could use as a smear piece and an attack piece, because they knew she's not the dog that's going to bark. She's the dog that's going to bite. Okay? Exactly. And they had to have something to fight back at that against, to try and make the people who aren't policy hawks, who turn on the nightly news and watch the anchor of your choice, okay, you pick, because every single one of them basically push some form of propaganda, okay? They turn it on, they hear what they say, and they say, oh, so that's what's really going on. And so they've all kind of, in their own little separate meetings, or all as a group, have come together and said, okay, we have to do things like this to kind of combat it. Because again, the people up top who bought them off in the first place, the people who run all those ads, because if you're paying the news network for those ads, guess what? You're paying their bills. You're giving them their money. You're giving them those big fat salaries. So you're buying them off just like you're buying off politicians. It's the same concept. It's all about the sponsors. That's
right, and it's like if they do something wrong, you're not going to, if those people who, like you said, pay your bills do something wrong, you're not going to really go after them, because you're going to be afraid that they're going to stop sending those checks in.
Bingo. And if a lot of sponsors decide they don't like the content that you run on your program, and they stop sponsoring ads during your hour, guess what happens to you on that network? You're gone.
Yeah.
Pure
and
simple.
It's sad because even if it's popular, they do that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm not saying this was a popular show by any means necessary. I don't agree with the guy, but I mean they did that to Glenn Beck when they fired him off of Fox News and all that crap. You see what I'm saying? All the sponsors fled.
All the people they took off MSNBC when they were talking about anti-Iraq war, they took off all those people a long time ago. Yeah. Well,
and that sponsors may have been involved in that one as well, because but at the same time, I think that was some upper people at the top there as well, because they just didn't want that message. But yeah, I mean, definitely wouldn't surprise me if sponsors had a hand in that as well, because but that's the nature of the game. I mean, and because literally you got to understand something. The networks who are running these news shows also put on entertainment shows. NBC is just not, it's not just a news network anymore, okay? CNN isn't either. Look at all the little documentary specials and stuff that CNN will air in the 60s, the 70s, Bush years. They're in the entertainment business, every single one of them, and it comes down to ratings and revenue. And if a TV show isn't doing good, they're going to pull it off the air as well.
Well, that goes into YouTube too, and what YouTube's doing.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Well, but the difference with YouTube is that they're going to say, yeah, you might not be advertiser friendly, but I'm going to be honest with you, I don't necessarily know about that, because man, they'll come after you on some bullshit and say that you are not advertiser friendly. I mean, literally, they could just take one little word that was said in a video or something. Oh, you're demonetized. I mean, really? YouTube is just playing games at this point. And they really took the ability to monetize away from an awful lot of people, which is where the PayPal, Patreon, all that stuff really came in the first place, because people were making a lot off YouTube. And then YouTube got even more involved and started rigging it up, because back in the day, a lot of the independent news outlets on YouTube, Secular Talk even brought this up, Kyle, his videos were way outperforming a CNN video. But now...
Right, exactly. Now they push that content. They push that mainstream media content.
Yeah, and I think they deliberately come out. So it's not just they won't even let you monetize. They then start warping algorithms to keep people from even finding you in the first place, you know?
Yeah, it's funny how MSM and all of them, they don't get demonetized for what they say. But if you are covering something they talked about, demonetized.
Oh, you would get demonetized in a heartbeat. That's absolutely right.
Right.
And the bigger problem is, and this is just a hunch from something that I saw recently, but for a little while there, my numbers were going up subscriber-wise like clockwork. Now, it took me a little bit to get to 100. But when I hit 100, we were off to the races, okay? Right. And then right at my upper 200s, all of a sudden it just seemed like someone slammed the brakes on. I was releasing videos, okay, day after day like normal. Now, this last week, I've kind of had a little bit of a, off period. I've had to get readjusted to being back on first shift and everything, and figuring out a good time when it would be to do my videos and all again.
Exactly.
I'm not going to get up early enough to do them before I go to work at 7 a.m. But I've been trying to get readjusted to all that. But what I've noticed is all of a sudden, like on my videos that I would upload, I never saw a negative comment, and I never saw a dislike, yet I would lose a subscriber. And I'm like, now, if you didn't like a video, most people at least would dislike that video, or at least express what they didn't like about that video. Right. But there was like 3 days in a row I would like gain a subscriber, lose a subscriber, and I'm like, something seems a little weird here, right? And
I wouldn't put it past YouTube to do stuff like that. And you see them like take down all kinds of, and it all started because there's been 2 or 3 ad gates, or what do they call it, apocalypses. But I honestly think that it's to protect their advertisers and stuff like that. Like they want that money. They want to keep that money when, like you were saying, indie media was outperforming mainstream media, and that was the big appeal of YouTube. So in a way, that's what was really bringing on people is, different voices other than the talking heads in mainstream media.
Right.
And honestly, man, I think you're right, because like I have experienced certain things like that. And my biggest thing is I don't care. Like I'm just gonna push out what I think because I have a big mouth. So this helps me kind of vent and
yeah.
So anyways, that's just my thing on it. But yeah, I wouldn't put it past them to do anything like that. And it's sad because you try to find alternatives too, like Rockfin or like some podcasts platforms and things like that. So I would recommend that, like, just try to find alternative platforms to push out your media.
I looked at Rockfin. I started hearing a lot of stuff about Rockfin, and I don't know what happened with that. It basically just like, sign up and we'll reach out to you.
I just got an email from them, so I did that like a month and a half ago.
I haven't got any.
Yeah, so I have to do some more processing stuff, but apparently I've heard from other people it's all on their time. So this is I gotta say, it's kind of a criticism I'm gonna give here, because come on, like you said, it shouldn't be, your competitor is YouTube. You want to bring in the disaffected content creators as soon as possible, so that you can kind of provide something for them. But right. Yeah, I wanted to kind of wrap up our discussion on immigration. I know this is something that's kind of been lost in the wind with it's a topic that comes and goes. I would say, immigration is kind of a thing that comes and goes. But I do think it's going to be important for the general election, because, we know Trump, he doesn't put that on the back burner. This is one of his, this is one of his specials that he puts out there. So I don't know if we've had a discussion on immigration. I'm interested to kind of find out your politics, but let me see if I can find this one tweet. And this was from you watched The Hill, The Rising?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to put it on and I'm going to read it out here.
His campaign to deny that.
Let me find it again. All right, there it is. So this is from Cigar over at The Rising. And it basically says, I'm going to have to come in here. So it says, open borders, no, that's a Koch brother proposal. It would make everybody in America poorer. You're doing away with the concept of a nation state, and I don't think there's any country that would in the world that would believe in that. Sorry, I couldn't really see it, but that's what Bernie Sanders, apparently he quotes Bernie Sanders from 2015, right? And his whole criticism was, Bernie Sanders today is being more soft and open borders. And so there was this New York Times editorial board that he went and had an interview with. And I caught this from the transcript. It said, quote, this is Bernie, if you don't have any documentation, I could hire you for $5 an hour. And what resources do you have? ? Not much. And that is an issue that our labor law reform, by the way, does deal with. And that was taken from his, from his thing a couple of weeks ago or a week ago. So I said, this kind of, to me, still resonates with his 2015 message. So I kind of wanted to not debate that with you, but have a discussion about immigration. So what would your take be on immigration right now, obviously giving everything that's happened?
So obviously this was the big issue, when Trump brought it all up in the 2015 primary all the way into the 2016 election. Me personally, I do believe in having a legal process to come through, but at the same time, I do realize there's a lot of people who have come to this country to provide a better life because they're trying to flee issues from their countries, and a lot of those problems, you could argue, have been imposed by, what's the sanctions and whatnot that were imposed by the United States just to try to, again, stick our noses in other countries' affairs and try to tell them how to govern themselves and how to conduct business and whatnot. Things that, extend all the way down from our CIA trying to go to countries. Again, that's the reason we got involved in Iran in the first place. They wanted to nationalize the oil, and we didn't want them to do that. So we go in and we take out their leader. We tried it in Cuba a number of years ago. Okay, so we've stuck our noses in for so long, and we made conditions so bad in these countries, and in some of them where we did take people out, we installed dictators in their place. And as a result, it made living conditions bad in those countries, so a lot of them want to come to the country where, we're still known for having freedom and prosperity for the most part. We all discuss the problems that we have at home, but I still think a lot of us take for granted what we still have compared to other countries. So I don't fault anyone for wanting to come into the country. I do, however, see the counter argument that a lot of people on the right have to that you've got a lot of bad factors that happen with people coming into the country and whatnot. You've got a lot of the coyotes, that they have to pay to try to get them into the country, and a lot of atrocious things happen from that aspect. Me personally, though, when I heard the Donald Trump argument, that we're just going to deport them all, that's one, I don't agree with that. Okay, I look at it like this. Okay, it's our fault that we've stuck our noses into all these other countries' affairs over the years and have created conditions where a lot of them want to come to the United States to get a better life and escape bad conditions in their countries. And so when you hear the pushback that's why we shouldn't deport them because they're just trying to come here for a better life. Okay, I say we should put it to the test. Everyone who's here, the way, and I said this years ago, the way, if I were president, this was the policy I would push to address the whole thing. If you're in the country, I'm going to give you, say, a 90-day window, come forward, let us know who you are, fill out some paperwork, get on the record, and you will be given temporary citizenship as a result. Now, like all the DACA or whatever, whatnot, come forward. Let us know you're here. You get temporary citizenship. You pay taxes just like every other American, so on and so forth. After you do that, you're then given, we could debate the time, but I would just say minimum 3 years, like a probationary period, basically. You live just like a normal American. You carry on. You do your business just like a normal American. Now, as long as you don't get involved in crime, we can't trace that you're involved in any sort of gang. And you're not selling drugs in the street. You're doing what you said you wanted to come to the country to do. You're trying to get that better life for your family. If we see you're doing that, then when that time period is up, you got full citizenship status, over and done. Okay, but in the meantime, then we do need to address stopping the issues that are causing people to have to try and flee their country. Stop trying to cripple economies to make people where they're so impoverished and can't eat, things of that nature. And then even secure our borders up where we need to. Now, I don't know necessarily, build some, ancient wall type
magnificent,
thing.
beautiful wall.
Yeah. The debate how you want to go about it in that regard, but I would support, protecting the border, things like that. Because in all actuality, I am on that opinion that an open border is just not a good thing. And even though you hear a lot of that from the right wing, the Democrats want open borders, the big pushback is, well, no one said we want open borders. But I do think at the same time you can take some of the things that you hear some people on the Democrat Party argue for that are, they didn't come out and say we want an open border, but they're also coming out and basically inviting the concept. Yeah. And that's something that even Tulsi Gabbard has basically mentioned. Tulsi Gabbard spoke out against that, and she's really been raked over the coals by a lot of, the AOCs of the world and
the squad,
people like that. Exactly. And so, my stance on it is, anybody that wants to come to the country for a better life for their family, I empathize with them on that 100%.
So,
but.
Yeah, no, that's a good take, and I think most Americans would probably agree with you. I mean, most Americans like the whole comprehensive immigration. Let's figure out what to do with the folks that are here. Kind of ramp up our border protection, do something about that, and get out of the regions where we just seem to be making it worse. So those are kind of the three factors that I think most Americans would concede and say, yeah, that's that's something that they'd be willing to go along with. I actually, or go ahead, yeah.
I want to throw one other
Sure.
thing in there too. This was a serious problem that went with Trump and his demonizing of a lot of the Hispanic immigrants. What most people, now some have pointed this out, there's a good number of Democrats who have pointed this out, but a lot of the people who are here just simply because of visa overstays. And they're not necessarily Hispanic people. Like, they may have flown right in on an airplane and just overstayed their visa. Okay? Yeah. So, the one thing that I definitely think really muddied the water on this whole issue and made it such a controversial topic that if you start to even sometimes try and get into this conversation, you then get lumped in, oh, well, you're with Trump. You with Trump. Is because he started using it and started demonizing, a lot of people would say, Hispanic people or, people from Mexico or further south of Mexico, South American countries and whatnot. That, I think, really lit a powder keg where you really can't even hardly talk about this issue at all without triggering someone. They're saying, oh, well, you're just like old Donald Trump over there. You're racist. You don't like, Hispanic and Latino people or something. And that's just not the case. Unfortunately, I think that's a climate we're in because of that.
No, yeah, I agree with you on that one. So actually, I guess my take is a little bit more conservative too. I like I take a lot of it from Kim Iverson over on YouTube. Kim Iverson's show. She put a great solution to it, but I do want to hit on a couple things that you had brought up. So, like, for one, I had a great discussion with Alan Myron on this show about immigration. We went into depth with what's going on in, like, kind of like you said, the South American countries, and, them kind of moving up. And he was saying that now Mexico is kind of having the same issue that we've been having, where now they're having to do something about it, right? So, I think that's a great point on that. But what I would say is this. to me, it's a big supply and demand issue. There is a reason why a lot of these immigrants are coming over here. Now, you could say, yeah, they're running away from big issues and things like that. But I think that specifically with our southern border, we have to kind of, we have to bring up the fact that these people are getting hired. So there are businesses out there. I mean, there's been recent news about like a chicken, whatever factory, whatever, where, they pluck the chickens and do all of that. A Koch brothers chicken warehouse or factory got raided. 300 illegals got sent back or to the detention centers, which I'll bring that up in a second. And nothing happened to the Koch. Nobody, no slap on the wrist, nothing. It was just, continue business as usual. Go replace those workers with other workers, and everything was gonna run smoothly. And I think, hold on a second, Gabriel. Yeah. So why don't you speak to that here in a second? I got to deal with something. Go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead. Pretty much biggest takeaway from that, you got to examine again, just like we said earlier with the military-industrial complex, the people paying off the politicians. Okay, Koch brothers have obviously been a huge contributor to the Republican Party and the GOP, brother. Long time. Okay, and so if their interests and their money basically ties into these businesses, and and they're paying off the politicians, that's why, as you basically said earlier, the whole comprehensive immigration reform, that's why that's just a talking point, really. You hear politicians talk about it, you hear them talk, but nothing ever gets done. Nothing that really amounts to anything ever comes from it. It's literally nothing but something they want to talk about and try and get people worked up in one direction or the other for their election. They never do anything with it because too many of them have too much financial interest. I think even Bill Maher's raised this point. Like, a lot of the jobs that the people who are in this country illegal are doing to make ends meet because they know they couldn't go to work, in a cubicle job or whatever. They go out and they pick the fruit and things like that. And I even heard a lot of people's defense against Trump rhetoric, like, oh, so all you white people ready to go pick your own fruit when he deports all the Hispanics? So, I mean, that
yeah. No, I'm with you on that. Yeah.
You're so, again, Ventura says it best. Follow the money. Follow the money. That's why comprehensive immigration reform is really nothing but a talking point to those people.
Well, what's interesting is that if you stop the the demand, then the supply will reduce. Because if illegal immigrants are coming here and they're saying, well, they're cracking down on all these businesses a bit too much, so there's no opportunity here, they're going to self-migrate back to their countries because they're saying, I mean, there's really no way to make it work here, So instead of like raiding these warehouses and saying, all right, we're going to be punitive on these non-nationals, which when I think about it, what that means is we're going to spend money to house these people who aren't even country, like they're not citizens or they're not even temporary citizens. We used to have these laws on the books that said you can't detain anybody who's not a national for more than like a week, I think. I forget what the name of the bill is or some kind of like legislation, but people changed that so that they can hold these illegal immigrants in those holding facilities on the border for longer. And guess who is contracted out to create these facilities and to put those asses in these beds? It's people, it's private companies, corporations who are getting these contracts. And just like the military industrial complex industry, if I own a holding facility for illegal immigrants, am I going to lobby to solve the problem? Why the hell would I lobby to solve the problem if more illegal immigrants means more money for me because more holding facilities? I saw a Fox News segment with, I think it was Laura Ingraham, who was criticizing California for shutting down private facilities who were housing illegal immigrants, saying this facility could have held 4,000 illegal immigrants. Who do you think pays for those holding facilities, the meals, the blankets? So from a fiscal conservative Republican GOP Lincoln Party point of view, that is against your philosophical point. You should be saying, why don't we just fund like buses and a couple meals and send them on their way in less than a week, and just catch and release.
But
Like you're out on the lake.
that that's the entire thing. Just like we said earlier, if you do the right thing with pulling out of the wars and the people making the equipment don't have a way to sell it anymore, you lose jobs. If you stop, all these private detention facilities, basically, that's money being lost, that's jobs being lost, and the people who own them, again, people who are paying off politicians, they're not getting their interests taken care of. So once again, you've got that factor. If you do the right thing, there's actually going to be some blowback, because unfortunately, again, as I said, we've lost the backbone that built the middle class, where we built a lot of things and sold them back to people in this country. Okay, exactly. we lost that from bad free trade deals. So what you have now are jobs that people are clinging to for some, whether it be they enlist in the military because they know, hey, we're always in a war, there's always need for military, or they join law enforcement to try to get some sort of a pension, or whatever it is that they do. When you start pulling back to do some of the things that people like me and you and many others find to be the moral right thing to do, it's going to have economic consequences because of this lopsided economy. These idiots.
That's a good point.
I say idiots. They're really not idiots. They were, in my opinion, they're very smart and calculating in what they did. But that's the problem, and that's the same thing. The private detention centers, they want people to be in there. Guess what? We're doing something right now with criminal justice reform, because we have loads of private prisons all over the place. Now, how do you think something like that crime bill that Bill Clinton was behind and Joe Biden was okay with, why do you think things like that were done in the first place? Okay? And again, they only targeted mostly who when things like that were passed. It's been pretty much a matter of record that when that came about, who did they go after? They didn't go after white people. They focused on the people of color. Okay? Now, I don't have statistics in front of me, but I would love to see just how many people were arrested on something like a marijuana charge or something that ended up.
But even poor white people are seeing the brunt of it now, because you have that perpetuation where it's like, well, now you're on parole, but you have to pay. Oh, and you can go get a job while you're sitting in this like mid-house, not really jail, but since your thing isn't for another year, we're gonna suck out all the money you make. So you can go to work, but you have to come back here, and you know what I mean. It's just and then if you slip up, then that's another extra charge, and they find little ways to get you, and it's all to make profits, because if you're a corporation and your product is basically incarceration, that is their product. That is the product that they're selling to government entities, cities. So if my product is incarcerations, obviously I would want my incarcerations to go up, because that's the only way that I make money.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same way with these detention centers. But I guess just to add a last point on the immigration thing, I talked about how they would self-migrate back. Another big pillar was, like you said, the economics and all these trade deals, all the manufacturing jobs that left. Somebody made a good point in the comments about infrastructure jobs, that could bring back a lot of that. It all depends on how you do it, right? It all depends on how you do it, right? And I'm a strong believer in national defense and security and borders, and that's one of the reasons I think that the troops should come back.
Like this. I want to put one thing in there since you brought that up, because this is something that I've been saying for years too. If we've got a problem on our southern border, then why in God's green earth are our troops not there instead of all of these countries around the world?
Right. Yeah. Well, I guess
isn't that the whole point of the American military, to protect this country?
Right. Yeah. So if it's such an emergency,
so why are we all around the world?
Yeah. And you know what they would say? It's to protect American interests. But what do we know? Whenever we hear the word interests, I always think oil. I always think money and oil. Right. And because if you think about it, that what is it called? It's like this little river of Hormuz or something, and that's a big like danger area where a lot of the freighters.
Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah, the Strait of Hormuz.
You're talking about right in between Iraq and Iran.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
No wonder we're in that exact region where the oil flows through to Europe and to the United States. But Trump will have you believe we're energy independent and we don't need their oil. But he'll put troops in Syria. And now, and this is a good topic to kind of wrap it up because we've been going on for a while. But what do you think of Donald Trump selling the troops? He made that comment on Fox with Laura Ingraham. I don't know if you caught it, but he basically said, hey, Saudi Arabia gave us billions of dollars, so I'm sending them these troops. They just deposited $1 billion, and I've told other countries if they want our troops and our protection there, they have to pay us. So basically, you know, you've commodified the United States Department of Defense to whoever can pay the most.
So I'll approach this from two ways. First of all, from my personal belief, that is bullshit, and we shouldn't be doing it. I mean, it's just that simple. Okay. For one, Saudi Arabia's got, if I'm not mistaken, some protection from Pakistan. I don't think we get along too well with Pakistan. So there, again, this is just more reasons why Saudi Arabia is no ally of the United States. Anybody who thinks so, wake up and get a cup. Okay. But the thing is, I'll play that devil's advocate card and then I'll come back to it in just a moment.
Sure.
Theoretically speaking, it is a very foolish concept that if we're just going to send our military out there to the rest of the world and, you know, say we're here to protect you and then get nothing in return for it, well, you know, looking at it from that point of view, you'd say, well, that is a pretty lopsided deal. So if we're going to do this, we may as well get compensated for it, basically, right?
Right.
On the other hand, again, as I said before, that's bullshit. We're not there to protect other countries, okay? We should be doing more for our own country.
Yeah. Yeah, it
okay?
makes me think, like, what happened to the nationalist people on the right? Where are they on this issue? You know, I don't hear a peep from them.
Well, of course not, because their figurehead is Donald Trump, and that's what he wants. And unfortunately, what you see from a lot of those people who are, you know, Trump through and through is it doesn't matter what that man says. Literally, people criticize him for saying this, but when you think about it, it's true. He said himself, I could go out and shoot someone on Fifth Avenue, and they're still going to support me. That's what's happening here. Literally, he could do the very things he ran against, and they're just going to come out. They're going to have some reason, some excuse in the book for why he's doing the right thing. Because, and honestly, if you want my opinion as to why they feel that way, it's got nothing to do with what his policy actually is. It's got to do with how he acts and how he carries himself. They have associated that professional, I'm a politician, a statesman type guy. They have associated that person with being this sneaky, sly little crook who's going to pretend to be a good leader, but in all actuality, they're just sitting there ripping you behind the scenes, signing those your jobs, whereas Donald Trump may be doing the exact same things. But he's going to go to a rally and he's going to, talk in a lot of ways that a normal American may speak. He's going to let a cuss word fly every now and then. He's going to go to a rally when he runs for president and said that he would tell Saudi Arabia about raising the price of oil, and this was his quote, "You're not going to raise the fucking price." Do you recall that statement?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So he's going to go and do things like that. No one's used to hearing that from a normal president. Right. And they hear that stuff and they're like, this is what we wanted.
Yeah, it's like that faux
We finally
populism.
wanted someone who's not that, insider. Yeah, and it's all about his political or his theater. He has that ability, just almost like someone like a WWE superstar. He's got that background. He can work a crowd, and he is literally.
What's the saddest thing is,
as we say,
or go ahead.
Go ahead. What I was going to say is he's literally, as we say in the South, he's just playing these people like a fiddle. Yep. I mean, it doesn't matter what he does. They have fallen in love with this man. And arguably, I mean, to be fair, there were a lot of people who fell for Obama the same way. He had a charisma about him. He was the first African-American president. And so because of all these different things, it didn't matter what he did. He ran on closing Guantanamo Bay, ran on getting us out of wars, ran on legalizing marijuana. We got not one single one of them. Nothing.
That's what I was going to say. If he would have just stuck to those three literally that you just mentioned, he had an opportunity to be one of the most popular presidents despite all of the, terrible things or whatever. If he would have just done a version of Medicare for all, because he ran on he said everyone's going to be covered, I guarantee, and it's not going to cost anybody a thing. And then he ran on, like you said, the marijuana issue. He said, I don't care. I legalize it. It's fine. And he ran about the biggest thing, bringing all the troops home. Why are we there? We've been there for 19 years. So he ran on all of that. And if he would have just done those three things, man, it would be hard to not vote for the guy, And I can see the appeal that a lot of people fell for. But like you said, he does have like that 25-30% of the country that just, or at least not the country, but just of the people who vote, who are just not going to, they're just not going to not vote for him. It's just they're going to back him no matter what, which is fine. I think it's obviously foolish of them, but I don't see it as I think that's just politics. You're always going to have that for any politician.
If I could throw one more example out there just real quick, because this just happened recently. I can't speak for a lot of other states because I don't get out and really go to that many other states and interact with people all around the country. But just right here in my backyard, Spartanburg, South Carolina, the very red state, and there's so many people that are, it's not like we're, upper class society down here in the South for the most part, but there's so many blue collar people who still love that man because of the image he portrays. And to give you point and case to that, a lot of these people don't do what I do and follow politics so closely and examine the full picture and try to put all the different pieces together and come up, with an unbiased opinion that would be critical of both sides wherever I think I need to be. Okay? Me and my wife went out to eat with my mother-in-law. I think it was last Friday night. Okay? And she is very much, more pro-Trump, okay? And we got to talking, I forget even how it came up, but the topic of Trump came up at the table. And she knows I do videos on here. She's watched some every now and then, but she hadn't watched any of them recently, where I've been very critical of Donald Trump. She hadn't watched any of them. And so the topic came up that pretty much that there's absolutely no way, I would, or even consider voting for him in November. And then she's like, well, why not? And then I said, and I mentioned the whole Iran thing, right? And then the first thing out of her mouth, well, you didn't agree with that? I went on to explain why I didn't agree with it, and she understood completely. She had no disagreement with what I was saying. She said, okay, yeah, that does make sense. That is a problem. But see, a lot of them don't follow things that closely. It's just
it's weird. It's part of our culture not to talk about politics almost.
Yeah. Well, I guess because it's such a divisive subject, and when you think about it, you don't tend to talk about it in the workplace because why? You're probably going to start an argument. Okay. And so there's a lot of businesses that don't want you to be talking about it in their place of business because they don't want a big fight to start in the middle of their store or something. Just because when you start having certain people who are just so stuck to their ideas of how we should do things, they're going to get into bickering contests. You see it on social media all the time, even. But the big,
especially nowadays,
thing that I say there is the working class are just like a lot of other people, who are more for like Joe Biden, for example. Okay, because they hear what's said on MSNBC or and so they think, okay, well, he's Obama's VP. We liked Obama for the same case like I made earlier, and they say, oh, okay, well, he must be a good guy. Same thing with Donald Trump. Again, they hear that way of speaking that they don't hear from most people, and they're like, yeah, so he talks almost like me. This guy says he wants to run for me. He wants to cut taxes, and they pitched it that the tax cuts are all for the middle class and this and that. So again, these things hit the blue collar, middle class, working people, and they sit there and they look at that and they just discard all the rest of it because they don't really study it to understand. When he comes out and he says, "Well, I killed someone that was a terrorist that was planning an attack on us," they then just turn around and say, "Oh, okay, good. We're glad you did that."
And it's so easy. You just have to, okay, what attack? Like what attack? Like when? How? What time? Where? Why?
And that is when they turn on Fox News and they just say, "Oh, well, the intelligence agency said it, so it's good to go." And they're like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, that's the same intelligence agencies that lied us into Iraq, that Trump was railing against in 2016. Yeah. So I guess to wrap up,
yep.
What would your predictions be for Iowa and New Hampshire coming up here in about 3 weeks or so? Or less than 3 weeks.
Well,
because you got Bernie. You the truth. Well, remember, you got the impeachments coming up, which are going to detract a lot of people, and we can get into that next time because wow, impeachment is just. I don't even know why they're going with this. Honestly, folks, like the worst possible, case you can bring against someone like Donald Trump. And then you got Joe Biden on the top of the Democrats right now, who's the whole Bermuda and his son, and it's going to be a shit show. But it takes away Bernie and lying Warren out of the race. But anyways, yeah, what do you think? Like, just give us your prediction here.
Honestly, prediction right now, I got a feeling we're probably going to see Bernie win Iowa. I definitely think that we might see Bernie win New Hampshire at this point. I would like to see Tulsi Gabbard do good. And like I said, I'm not going to write her out until we do start seeing some results. Yeah,
things can change. Obviously, it's
bingo. I expect Tulsi. If she's going to do well, we're definitely going to see how well she's going to do in New Hampshire. We may see her do pretty good in Iowa, but I think New Hampshire, she's kind of really, I think she went all in New Hampshire, and so
yeah, she's a point away from Warren. She's like in I think she's in fourth place, but she's like at 7-8%. So she's doing really well in New Hampshire. I mean, she moved to New Hampshire for the New Hampshire primary, so exactly. And I think that'll be good because if anything, it puts the pressure, and kind of the fire under Bernie to be like, oh, well, maybe this is the allegiance that I should have been, heading towards from the beginning. That's just obviously my hopeful, wishful thinking because I would love a Bernie Tulsi ticket, Tulsi Bernie ticket, however you put them. I think that's a winning ticket against Trump. I think it's harder without a Gabbard or Yang, allegiance or whatever you want to call it. Definitely a lot harder for Bernie. Yeah. But I guess my prediction is similar to yours. I do see Bernie in Iowa winning. I see him doing really well in New Hampshire, possibly winning. If he wins those two states, I think he has a good chance to run away with it. It depends because Biden.
I hope so.
Biden's going to do well in South Carolina, unfortunately, because like you said, a lot of people. And I don't want to say anything bad about black people or anything, but I don't get it. Maybe it's just the older black people, but South Carolina, I don't get it. Maybe it's like you were saying with like certain people with Trump. It's just, oh, he was Obama's VP, and I don't follow politics.
Exactly the case. It is exactly the case. I can say that because I have so many friends on my Facebook account that when I just scroll through the news feed, the one literally shared a little meme the other day, and there were so many people up in the comment section and liking and loving this picture, and it was just a picture of Obama. It's like, I bet you miss me now. And I'm just like, no, not really.
Yeah, I don't miss taking 2 wars to 7 wars.
Right, and I even got in the comment section, and put on, some steak swimming trunks and jumped into the Shark Tank there and even commented on, oh boy, did I get attacked in that comment section. But I knew it was coming. But that's the way it is. I don't know if it's something about my state or what, but the people don't study the stuff, and it's probably actually the case for probably a lot of people out there in the country as a whole. They just turn on the news, they hear what they hear. And the thing about Obama was I mean, they even pushed the narrative for the guy that he didn't have a scandal in his presidency, the way that the Trump administration is.
Right, Benghazi.
And they were pushing it like a year ago. Well, oh God, even farther than Benghazi. I mean, scandal after scandal with the Obama administration. They're the ones that gave Russia the reset button. Okay, right. All the increasing of the conflicts. I mean, there were plenty of scandals. What was Fast and Furious? Eric Holder.
Oh,
okay?
Yeah.
The whole gun running thing, basically. There were plenty of scandals you could turn to the Obama administration on. The difference is they were not covered nearly the same. So these people who just turn to the mainstream media for their takeaway, they just take whatever they get from that, and that's how they formulate their opinions. And so they gotten the conclusion from these news networks that Obama was this swell guy. Was the second coming of JFK. He was an excellent president. He made this country a much better place.
I never voted for the guy. I never believed him, not once. He was a phony.
No, I mean, and I wasn't old enough to vote for him either occasion, but I wasn't a supporter. I was pushing for independent third party type stuff.
I don't know if I should be admitting this, but I was rooting for that Ron Paul guy. Not Rand Paul, but Ron Paul.
That's who I wanted. That's who I wanted. Ron Paul. That was my man. Me and a teacher, when I were in high school, we sit around and talk about Ron Paul all the time. And obviously, I've got some disagreements with the guy.
Of course.
When it comes to foreign policy,
he's gotten worse over the years, but at the time, it was definitely there was a little mini movement behind him.
Oh yeah, I mean, but again, he was on foreign policy and stuff very, very similar to Tulsi Gabbard in some aspects.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now you could argue some of his financial stuff.
Right. Yeah. Once you start getting into his,
just let the free market run wild. All that. I'm not behind that.
Right. Exactly.
But back in those days, I was a lot younger.
Exactly.
Hadn't really studied as much of that, and nothing really stood out to me at that point where that was a problem. Right. But I definitely was able to gather a lot of stuff from his foreign policy in support of, and a big reason to that, I watched a lot of Jesse Ventura stuff back in those days too. I love Jesse. I've been a fan of Jesse for years, man.
Yeah. All right, brother. Why don't you let people know again where they can find you on YouTube and on Twitter? Go ahead.
So yeah, Independent Report on YouTube. I'm going to start getting back to uploading videos more regular. Hopefully here, maybe by the end of the day, I may upload something. And if not, I'm going to try to get back to it tomorrow. So the Independent Report, that's the YouTube channel. If you follow me over on Twitter, it's at Vigilant Indep. That's INDEPE1. That's the Twitter handle. Follow me over there. And then, like I said, as I upload clips, make sure if you go to my YouTube channel and you subscribe, ring the bell so you'll get notifications there. But I'll also be posting links to the videos over to my Twitter account, posting them as well. So if you follow me on Twitter, you'll see those come up. You can click and get to the videos from there as well.
All right, folks, there you go. Definitely go check him out on YouTube. The link is in the description box already. So if you're still tuned in, go ahead and go down to the description box. There's a link to his channel there already. Definitely recommend that. And yeah, man, I definitely hope we can have a chat maybe after the Iowa caucus and everything happens. And we'll get back together and do another live stream. But that's it for this live stream, folks. Charles, why don't you stick around here for a second? Don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you follow news and politics, and smash the like button because it really helps this channel grow. And I'll catch everybody in the next one. Peace out.